Style. Style is the answer to everything. A fresh way to approach a dull or dangerous thing. To do a dangerous thing with style is what I call art.
Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning into the AFV factory. On this video we're going to be looking at weathering tracks, wheels and the underside of this vehicle with dusty deposits, dry dusty deposits that you'd accumulate during a summer offensive, and with this tank primarily in an urban background. So I'm starting on the weathering today for this E-25. It's been sat here for a little while, I just haven't got round to it yet. I've been working on the E-100. But yeah, so today I'm starting. So initially I'm going to be giving it a wash with this buff titanium, which I've got some on this cardboard here. And as you can see, the oils, the linseed oil is starting to leach out. So you just want the paint, you don't want the oils in there. And I'm going to be thinning that down with this oil mediums. It's one that I prefer. It works well. It's the same make as the paint is. That's my preferred choice. Other options are available. So initially I'm going to be starting on the underside and on the tracks and road wheels, etc. And yeah, we'll see how we get on.
Everything that happens is motivation. Everything that happens is motivation.
So that seems pretty messy and haphazard, I know, but that's the idea behind it. It is a wash, and so it just runs and pulls in certain areas. You can see that already starting to take effect on the wheels there. On the underside, again, yeah, it looked like I was just messily brushing stuff on, which is what I have been doing. And again, as this dries, and it dries very slowly, it starts to leave just the paint deposits behind, and that then gives the appearance of it being dusty. This is obviously the initial coat. There will be more to follow, so it does build up in layers, and the more layers you get, the better effect you get. And again, this is workable for a long time. So as it dries, if I start to look at it and think, yeah, I'm not happy with how that looks, there's too much here or not enough there, then I will just have a moistened brush with the oil mediums and go over it and move stuff about and play around with it. So yeah, it's very easy to do. So it's 24 hours later, and just looking at the first coat of weathering with the oil paints, as you can see now, that has dried, and obviously all the oil mediums has evaporated away and just left the oil paints there, the diluted oil paints. And you can see now that that does look as if those wheels have gathered some dust. And on the underside, the same is starting to happen there. As I said, this is obviously just the very first coat, so we will build that up with more coats and throw in some different colours in there, or different shades as well, just to give it some depth. The underside. And as I said before, you know, you can go over those, go over them again and go over them again as they're drying, and just keep working at it. And if there's stuff you don't like or not happy with, you can just address that and get it the way you want it to look. I've also started doing some work on the building facade for the background of this. It's pretty gaudy and unrealistic at the moment, but that's basically just the first coats of paint on there, and again that will be weathered, and that will look a lot less unrealistic basically once I've finished doing that. So I'm on to the second round of weathering on this now, which is going to be again another round of oils, so we'll see how we get on with that. So that's the second coat on and dried now, and as you can see, they're starting to look really dusty, and also you can see how much that has toned those colours down just with a couple of coats, if you compare it to what it used to look like. And as I said on previous videos, you know, it will tone these colours right down and they won't look so so strange. So this underside has also had its second coat on there, quite messy and rough, just how I wanted it to look. Got some runs in there which are just natural from the oil paints that have just how they've run. I found that I've got this sponge, quite dense sponge, it's like a posh washing up sponge, and as this is drying I've just been dabbing on this, and it's given this uneven finish, so I'm quite pleased with that. I will be doing some streaking on here and on the rear as well as those get built up, and obviously, you know, I'm going to now hit it with a different colour, so we'll get some dark colours in there, and that will be a more localised wash. I won't be just throwing it everywhere. I should just be picking out certain areas and start to give it a bit more depth.
Everything that happens is motivation. Everything that happens is motivation. I regard the work of motivation the most important work in the history of man. Everything that happens is motivation. Everything that happens is motivation.
So that's now had a going over with the burnt umber, a lot more localised washes rather than just a full-on wash that goes everywhere. I've picked out a few areas, a few bolt heads and hubs. I've done a leaking hub there. I will go, that's just the initial version. I'll go over that again with some engine grease. That will look a lot more oily than it does at the moment. And a few little bits on here as well, just minimal. And I've just gone over that sprocket, decided to give that a more of an oily look. So it's just gives you a bit more of a different perspective as you're looking at it. And the same along here now. I've done some pin washes with the burnt umber, and you can see now that there's two colours on there. It's starting to get a more realistic look. So I'm pleased with how that's looking at the moment, and the same on the underneath. And again, I went over that with a sponge and just dabbed it, and it just moved the oil paints around to give that random dusty look, you know, as the underside of a vehicle would look as it's driving around, and it just picks up the dust and the dust sticks to it. So once that's all dried, I'll have a look at that tomorrow and see whether that needs to be gone over again with the burnt umber, or whether I need to now look at adding a third colour, something like a raw senna. And also still being worked on is the building frontage. I've done a little bit more work on it, changing some colours and some dry brushing here and there, but you know, still again a lot more work needs to be done on that to give it a more realistic look. So I'll leave that there for now. We've now got two coats of the buff titanium on both the wheels and the lower side of the vehicle, and I've been over it again with a more localized wash with the burnt umber. And now that's dried, I think you can get a good idea of how this is going to look when it's finished, and sort of the look that I was trying to achieve. I'm pleased with how these wheels have come out. So next we're moving on from oil paints onto enamels, which is another medium I really like working with. They're very similar to oils in the fact that you know, you dilute them, apply them, they dry quite slowly, so again you can go over them and change things and move bits and pieces around. So yeah, they're good. So I've got a couple here. I've got Dust Effects and Dust and Dirt Deposits Light Dust. So what I'm going to be doing, I think, is probably going to use the Dust Effects first. It's very light. I mean, it's very close to being the colour of the grey. And then secondly, probably again with this one, I shall go over it with a more localised wash around the suspension units, etc. And then with regard to the leaky wheel hub here, I've got some engine grease, which is the MIG Abteilung 502, although the label has disappeared from it. That's really good stuff for doing, you know, it's engine grease, it's self-explanatory, but it's good for doing things like leaky, oily hubs. So yeah, so that's, I shall jump on in and we'll crack on and give it a coat of the Dust Effects.
Everything that happens is motivation. Everything that happens is motivation.
So the E-25 has now had two washes with buff titanium, and then it's had a pin wash, a more localized wash with burnt umber, and it's then had another all over wash with the AK Dust Effects, which is it's just building up layers. The dust effect is very close to the grey of the vehicle, so it's a very subtle layer that has gone on. Some more work on the wheels with the leaky hub there, with the MIG engine grease. Same thing for that sprocket there. Look at the underside. It's really starting to take shape with a dirty, dusty look. We've gone over those bolts with the burnt umber, and also around some of the areas with the engine grease as well. So next is going to be back to some AK enamels. It's going to be this dust and dirt deposit, light dust, and again that will be probably a liberal coat over the underside and around the suspension and components, etc., just to again to change the tone slightly, give a bit more depth to the weathering. So that will be the next one to do.
Everything that happens is motivation. Everything that happens is motivation.
So this is as far as I'm going to take it with weathering with oils and enamels. I've reached a stage now where I'm happy with how this looks. And what will come next is going to be working on the tracks, and also we're working on the hull with some pigments to start to build up some areas of dirt that have stuck in up under here and around the suspension units. But as you can see, now that the dust and dirt deposits, the light dust has dried, it's added another shade to that. And I'm happy with how that looks. The leaking hub is looking pretty good. And I've done a similar thing up here on the sprocket on the other side, just to give the eye something different to look at, so it's not all the same. It's nice to have a change. Your eye sort of picks that up rather than just looking at something that's all one colour. But yeah, so I shall get back to you on the next video, as I say, which will be the tracks and pigment weathering. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. It's always good to see that people are taking an interest in what I'm doing. And also, if you want to comment, that'd be great. Happy to chat to people as well about anything. So take care for now.